All right, you guys, happy Friday. Today is day 5 of our group coaching week, and today we are talking about how to gain online clients with in-person events. So for those of you guys who don't know, I actually started this business accidentally. I had been hosting curated dinner parties with my best friend, and it kind of snowballed. So we started these back in 2018, and the goal at the time was really just to connect amazing people. We both always found that we were saying, I have a guy for that, I have a guy for that, I have a guy for that, or a girl for that. And we always wanted to kind of help people find the right person to help them with whatever it was that they were needing help with. And so I had been following and reading and watching this guy named Jason Gaynard, who's actually an amazing connector. And he wrote a book called Mastermind Talks. And he just started showing me that there were all these other options to connect with people. And so we decided that we were going to launch these curated dinner parties. And so what we did was we started with our really close friends, but because all of our friends, we're best friends, but our friends didn't all know each other. So we started with really small groups. The first dinner was just 6 of us. It was just Lisa and I, and actually Brian, who was my friend at the time, and 3 others, Lisa's husband and 2 more friends. And that was the first dinner party. It was a little bit scary. We didn't know how it was going to go. We didn't know what was happening or what was going to happen. So we just kept it really small. So we started with the 6, and we had some different activities and things to do at the dinner. We had some different discussion questions at dinner, and some different ways for people to connect. And the people that we invited, there were only a few, but the people that we invited, we knew would connect on either a personal or a professional level. And so we did the first dinner, 6 of us. And then I think the next one we went to 8. And then every time we did it, the feedback was so amazing. The feedback was, we loved this. We loved connecting with people. It was great to meet people who are like-minded and all of that. And so eventually it grew. And I think the last one that we did had 23 or 25 people. We tended to start theming them. So at the beginning, we just invited people that we thought would match. And then as they got bigger and we had more and more people asking us about them and asking if they could bring friends and all of that kind of stuff, we started going, okay, let's get them themed. So for example, we did one that was themed with real estate. So we had some agents, we had some brokers, we had an artist who sold her art to, people who were collecting art, who were building, really nice fancy houses. We had builders, we had all kinds of different people in the real estate, world. And that's kind of how we grew them. And then the last one that I talked about, the 23 or 25 people we had, was female entrepreneurs. So it was really fun to have these themed dinner parties. Now, not only did we theme them, but we also created seating arrangements. So of course we wanted to make sure that everyone got to meet each other, but mostly we wanted to make sure that there were specific people that they got to meet. And so we created an actual seating arrangement, which kind of leveled up the feel of what was going on. And everybody had a specific place, and they had a place card, and we put together some flower arrangements to put on the table, and we made it look nice and all of that stuff. So that's actually how this business started, because after all of that happened, we started to have this idea for a membership. And when I first launched this business, I launched it with Lisa. She is now running her own business. But at the time, we launched it together, and we launched actually a community, a membership. And it had men and it had women and it had, all kinds of people from all kinds of different industries, and it was awesome. And so that's how this business was born. Lisa had ended up going out on her own and taking care of family. She got pregnant. She was doing the whole family thing. And I ended up turning the business into coaching, but we didn't know that was going to happen. And this is also how virtual dinner parties were born. So we had hosted all of these in-person dinner parties for so long. And it was about 1.5 years by the time they became virtual, because as you know, the world went upside down in March of 2020. And so that is exactly when we launched our membership, April 2020. And so we thought, okay, well, we can't do them in person, so we're going to have to do them online. So all of that to say that you guys can start building your relationships in your community and your sort of status, for lack of a better word, in your community using these curated dinner parties. So start with friends, start with family, start with people who you know will connect, and just let it expand naturally. Invite people to bring their friends, invite people to tell each other about it or to tell different people about it. And you want to make sure that you are doing them based on not only personal, but also professional connections. And this is just a way for you to get to know people in your community, right? And usually friends of friends works really well because chances are you guys have the same or similar, values, commonalities, and stuff like that. So the way that we did this was we actually found a restaurant in sort of mid downtown Toronto that was relatively easy for people to get to no matter where they were coming from. And we found this place that actually had a room upstairs that was separate so that we could have just us in that room. And the benefit here was that we would tend to get this space on nights where normally they wouldn't have enough people to need to use that room. So for the restaurant, it was a huge bonus because here we were bringing 20 people to eat and drink and all the things. And they actually didn't charge us. So you want to be able to find a restaurant where maybe there's a separate room, that would be ideal, or they have a really long table where you guys can all sit together, and maybe a space where you can mingle about a little bit, right? So ideally it's something that is separate and that you're not paying for it. And the way that we did it was we didn't do tickets and we didn't do any of that stuff. People would just come, it was free, and they would just pay for whatever they got. Little quick water. Okay, so that was how we got that started. So we didn't have to be out of pocket. We didn't have to be paying for a whole bunch of stuff. We didn't pay for people's meals. We didn't do any of that. And we also didn't have to collect tickets and do money and anything like that. It was really, really casual. So they came, they paid for their own meals. It was awesome. And then we did the seating arrangement, like I said. And then of course, throughout the night, depending on the size of the group, if it was bigger, then we started to mingle and we started to make sure that people were meeting other people, and we started to kind of direct them and say, hey, you should also meet so-and-so who's sitting over there, right? And we started to just build these relationships and build this community. Now, the last thing that we did was eventually, as we learned, we started to collect emails. And so, of course, as we're inviting people, we had to ask them for their emails. But we also started to do things like a draw. So we would have, a little, I forget exactly, we use a bucket or a basket or something like that, a nice one. And people could put in their names for a draw. Sometimes we did it for fun and we drew something that came from someone else. So for example, one of the women who came owned a jewelry company. And so she gave away a bracelet. So there was a draw for that. And you could also do a draw for like a free call with you. For example, you could also have a QR code, or you could also have even just a paper version where they can give you their email to get on your email list if you have an email list, or even just to get their email so you can email them with your regular Gmail account if you're just getting started. So this is a really simple, fun way to bring people together, to start to create an energy around you, to show up as the expert. Then as we built this sort of program, we ended up starting to do co-working days. So instead of having in-person dinner parties, we ended up having people for lunch. So we used the same restaurant, but they allowed us to be there from like 12 until 3 and use that same room. Because again, at that time, the restaurant wasn't busy enough to fill that top spot that we were in. So we would host these co-working events, those we did charge for, and people would come and they would co-work and they would meet each other, and we would also be able to provide some support. So this is where we started to kind of get into business a little bit. And, we were helping people, we were bringing resources, and we were there to answer questions and all that kind of stuff. And so it started to become a little bit more on the business side. And so for us, that's what helped people then become clients. For you guys, if you are in fitness and nutrition, maybe you're doing a little presentation. Maybe you have some resources out. Maybe you have like a slideshow or something. It doesn't need to be fancy, and it doesn't need to be all out, and it doesn't need to be, all that stuff. But something that is casual, that's also showing people who you are and what you know and all that stuff, and making and helping you show up as the expert. So you can kind of tweak this event to being whatever makes the most sense for you. But don't forget that just because your clients are going to be online doesn't mean that you can't get them from in-person events. So this also applies to not only hosting your own events, but attending other people's events. That's a huge one, right? Even if it's not specifically a networking event, it's just like get out into the world, right? I went to a drumming session with a friend of mine who does these amazing, beautiful sound drumming sessions. I went to I've been to lots, but I went to one maybe a couple months ago. I met a few people that I had met before, but not for a long time, or we hadn't really gotten to talk that much before. And a couple of them ended up coming to our suburban co-working retreats that we have at our house. And so you just never know, right? I didn't go there thinking I'm networking or thinking I'm trying to find people, but we connected and she happened to know my friend who was running the session and we got talking and it made sense. And so I invited her, right? It was super organic. It was super easy. So you guys can do this stuff too, right? You can really do this kind of easy networking and connecting as well. And I really encourage you to do that because honestly, it is such a faster way to get to know people, to build that know, like, and trust when you're working with people in person, right? It's so quick. So that is everything for today, you guys. That is everything about going and how to create an in-person event, the steps that you can follow, and how that can end up being really great for your online business. So that's the end of our 5 days. I hope that you guys loved this week. There were a few different things this time. We've talked lots about group coaching before, but some changes this week to give you guys some new things to think about and put into place and all of that good stuff. I'd really love to hear about the in-person events that you guys are going to be hosting, whether you're going to host some kind of a workshop, whether you're going to host a curated dinner party. It's super easy to do. I'd love to hear everybody's, feedback on that and what you're thinking and what your plans are. And I'd love to see you get some clients from it too. So that's it for this week. Next week, we are doing the brand new workshop that's going to talk about how to launch your group coaching program. So before, it was always talking about your offer and your pricing, but this time we're adding this new content where we're going to be talking about how to actually launch. And so if you guys want to come to the workshop, I'm going to drop the link below one more time today below this video. And I would love to see you guys next week on February the 12th, Wednesday, February the 12th, 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, yes, there is going to be a replay, but ideally you guys show up live because that way you'll be able to answer or ask all of your questions. I'll be able to talk to you. I'll be able to actually answer them for you live in real time, in the feel of what a group coaching call looks like. So I want you guys to come and see what that's like so that you can be able to translate that into your own business. Because as one of my old mentors says, you can't model what you don't see. So that's it. That is all for this week. I hope you guys had a great week. I hope you got a lot of takeaways, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the workshop next week, Wednesday the 12th at 2 p.m. Have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you back next week.